The stuff was all great, but what we felt is we couldn't understand why Lee went there. So then, with the extra scenes that we shot, which were about me not being able to relate to my dad and the president, it became a much more conscious thing. And what he's experiencing is then just a dark moment of the soul, I suppose, where he wonders what the point in being saved is. We're tearing each other apart. We're stuck in these tin cans floating in space. Life isn't really life if you're doing that, and he's not going to be rescued anyway, and yeah, he kind of pulls the plug on himself, and I embrace that, because these characters are in extreme situations, and you know, if you're going to be honest to the premise, you've got to see some of the characters really question what it's all about, because it is pretty bleak. Anyway, so that's what all that was about, and thankfully they kept it in, and they stuck me in freezing cold Vancouver seawater as well, to do a floaty sequence in the water in the middle of November, which was lovely of them. Anyway, it's a great question. I'm sorry it was a long-winded answer, but it was one of the more interesting points of this season for me.
And I wondered too if you would comment about exploring the relationship between Apollo and Adama, and your relationship with Edward James Olmos, how the two of you have worked that out, and what we may see going forward.
Yeah, to everyone. You know, he was really laying down. He was kind of being an alpha male, walking around the set, peeing on the floor and saying, "You better be worthy of my talent, my time." I think he was scared, you know, to do a sci-fi production for Sci-Fi. He wasn't sure this was the greatest move, and so he really wanted to make sure that everyone had the bar raised absolutely high, that we were making television that wasn't science fiction, it was drama first and foremost, and it was absolutely going to be real. The consequences were going to be real, that everything in it should be scary, and you know, he did the same with the cast. He really, I think he scared us. I think, you know, in a challenging way, and it worked brilliantly for our relationship. You know, it was a son intimidated by a father who resented his father's influence, who resented everything his father stood for, and was trying to make his own way in the world, and thought, screw this, screw you, screw the military, I don't think you've lived your life in such a great way. Through that is slightly disconnected with the world, can't really, you know, make significant human connections again, and everything seems a bit numb. And I played every subsequent scene up to including the beginning of, or all of Black Market and Captains and Scar in that way. And we'd already shot all this stuff, and so David Icke brought me into his office and he said, "Listen, this might happen," and I was really as angry as I get, and I was like, "Well, this is just, you know, not on." And thankfully they liked all the rushes so much, they wanted to extend the episode, so they turned it into episodes 11 and 12, and then they were able to put in all the stuff that sort of humanized Kane a bit more, and all the beats that had me kind of questioning the two linchpins of the fleet, Adama and Roslin, how they could descend to the level of assassination, of murder, to try and rectify basically a rivalry, a human rivalry with these people that should have been our saviors and not our enemies. Other humans, another Battlestar, should have been the best news possible, and it turned into almost the destruction of the fleet. And once you had that put in there, seeded, then you could see why Lee, when he's thrown out into space, into nothingness, looks back, sees these two Battlestars about, I mean, at this point they're trying to work together to destroy a resurrection ship, but the feud between them is so dark and so brutal that what's there to be rescued for? So thankfully they put it back, but what we did is we reshot it. The first time I shot that sequence, and I'll describe what the contraption is. It's called a parallelogram. It's a big long lever, all green, on a green screen, and I was strapped into a chair, and this thing has the ability to turn you through 360, upside down, any which way, all in green, and there's a little man in a green suit operating it, and there's just me floating around about as high as, you know, the ceiling, and it's nauseous. Like, to be upside down for any length of time like that is horrendous. And also, as they turn you, because you're meant to be in anti-gravity, you have to really stiffen your body and your limbs so they don't sort of slump in some way as you turn through 90 degrees and up in your head, and the blood rushes to your head, and I felt like throwing up. I think I'd had a few too many drinks the night before anyway, and it was a bit of a traumatic experience. But the first time I did it, there was a real sense of vertigo. Not because I'm scared of heights, I'm not really, but just imagining what it would be like just to be in nothingness, just to have nothing around you and look around to try and find something that gives you some sort of space correlative to work out where you are, an anchor, exactly. And there's nothing, and it was a real panic attack. So I explained the suicide the first time through a physical sense of almost claustrophobia, ironically, that comes from being surrounded by too much space, which sort of